Hello and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jonathan Keys, and welcome to the Suffolk County Downtown Revitalization Grant Program informational webinar. Just a minute after 2 here, and just in the interest of everyone's time, I think we'll go ahead and jump right in. This is being recorded, so if you miss anything or you want to be able to go back and check certain sections, that information will be available to you. We'll have a link posted on our website shortly following this session. I just want to briefly introduce the Suffolk County team that's joined us. In addition to myself, we have James Braco-McComb, we have Kat Freitas, we have Nancy Shaverty, Olivia Kulasa, and Annette Brownell. I think many of you probably know and have worked with in the past. And again, my name is Jonathan Keys. I'm the director of the Downtown and Transit Oriented Development Division in the Economic Development and Planning Department. All right, so let's, as I said, jump right in, just in the interest of everyone's time. You should all be seeing the first slide. And James, if you could just go ahead and advance that, I think we can get started. So today we just want to provide a brief overview of this Downtown Revitalization Grant. We have done this program now for more than 20 years. This is the 22nd year. And over the course of that time span, we've awarded over $12 million to over 300 projects. So it is one of the longest lasting and most impactful grant programs that we have here in Suffolk County. This year, we are pleased to announce that we have a total of $500,000 that will be awarded for the that is available to be awarded for the 2024 round of this grant. Next slide. Just brief timeline. Here's where we are today. The application was launched online a couple of weeks ago. It is due May 17th. It's a Friday at 4 p.m. We'll say this a few times throughout, and it says it in the guidelines as well, but the submittal process is to email the application to me, jonathan.keys@suffolkcountyny.gov. To do it 4 p.m. that day, I will respond with a confirmation email to let you know that it has been received. The applications generally shouldn't be very large in terms of megabytes and bandwidth and getting bounced by the server. We haven't had that issue before, but just do try to be mindful if you have a particularly large file, consider breaking it up. But it hasn't really been an issue in the past, so we don't anticipate that going forward. The panel, which I'll discuss in a moment, will review these applications over the summer and make recommendations to the full legislature for an official award in the fall. Speaking of the panel, that brings us to our next slide. The panel comprises 20 members, one of which is appointed by the county executive, one of which is appointed by the planning director, and the other 18 of which are all appointed by the Suffolk County legislature. So each legislator has an appointment that's shown here. This list is also represented on our website. Typically, members of the community, members of chambers and civic organizations and local businesses. We've had a lot of members who've served for a very long time and who have great experience, people who really know the community. Their input is really highly valued in this process. And they also serve as liaisons to the community to help introduce people to this program and perhaps make suggestions for potential grant applications that can be submitted as well. I don't easily have access to a full list of everyone who's attending here today. Teams isn't the easiest format to work with. But I believe we probably have a number of representatives from our panel on, and just want to take a moment again to thank them for their volunteer service on this board. Okay, next slide. Just want to tell you a little bit about the program and what it entails. And then after a few more slides, I'll turn it over to James to take you through the rest of the presentation. So this is a program to fund capital expenditures in downtown areas and business districts in Suffolk County. The way this program is structured, eligible applicants are chambers, civics, local not-for-profits, beautification societies, bids, anything that's comparable to the list that you see on your screen here, in partnership with the local municipality. We really stress that part. The reason is, on a practical level, for the funding, the awards are made directly to the municipality to undertake the expenditure and get the reimbursement. So really, from a financial vehicle, the municipality is the channel that's managing these grants. We do want to see the partnership with the local civic organization just to have a better understanding that there's a project that has local support and is desired by the community. Once we get through the evaluation process, which we will go over, pardon me, to certify or document that partnership with the municipality, we request in the application a resolution from the partnering municipality showing support for the project, and authorizing the execution of an agreement with us here at the county should the project be awarded. There is a sample resolution provided in our guidelines. If you're working with your municipality, they can pretty much just copy and paste that language to get that application in that resolution application. I will say, in terms of lead time items for an application, this is certainly an item that stands out. Getting on a village board agenda is typically not super time consuming, but it may be a process for a town board agenda, as there may only be a few meetings between now and the deadline. So if you are looking to apply and you haven't contacted your local municipality, we'd encourage you to do that as soon as you can. Next. In terms of project eligibility, this is a capital grant program, which means that all projects must be long-term, and in particular, they have to have a 15-year lifespan. We typically see things like curbs, sidewalk, roadway construction and restoration, pedestrian walkways and crosswalk enhancements. Certainly street lighting has been a popular one over the years. Enhanced ADA access, sewer system infrastructure. We will go through some best practices and some suggested examples at the end of this presentation, and Nancy just dropped a link as well in the chat if you want to check that out. So that is what is eligible. Examples of things that are not eligible are temporary improvements, things that can be lifted up and walked away with, to really simplify it. So trash bins, banners, annual plantings for flowers, and operating expenses are some of the most common ones people ask about that are not eligible. There is a caveat on the plantings question that we'll address at the end. There's a few particular instances where we may be able to consider it, but as a general rule of thumb, beautification type plantings are not eligible. Grant requests must be at least $10,000. Since, as I mentioned, this is a $500,000 program for the year, we are typically looking at awards that are in the $20,000 to $70,000 range as a typical average award. So those really sort of define the lower and upper limits of what we commonly see. Not saying there's any hard limit on how high we'll go or how low we'll go below, up down to 10,000, but those are the common range of awards. Next. Okay, so for the evaluation criteria, I'm going to turn it over to James. If you have questions, I'd ask you to just maybe hold on to those for a minute, and at the end, we'll try to open it up to questions and answers, and they can be dropped in the chat, and we can have our team here work through the questions. James, you want to go?
Sure. So I'll go through the project evaluation criteria with all of you. So there are 5 main categories, that the projects are scored against, and I'm going to go through each one of them, so I'm not going to go through them here. Essentially, the first one, and this is an important one, up to 20 points will be awarded for projects within or adjacent to an identifiable downtown. These are areas that you'd expect to see retail, restaurants, small businesses, pedestrian activity, maybe some connections to transit, maybe sidewalks or street parking. Are the buildings close together? Is there a big setback? Are there municipal parking lots? Those are the type of things we look for when we're identifying whether or not a project is near downtown. And everybody who applies is going to be providing the street address and the coordinates. And if it's actually on a property, the tax map number, so that we can actually score based on that location that you provide. So similar to that is the project part of a downtown improvement plan. Is there a master plan for the downtown? Has there been a visioning study, a walkability study, some type of thing that shows that there is an intention to make this area more of a downtown or more walkable, safe for pedestrians, or to increase the economic development or sort of desirability of the area? And so you can list out, any work that's been done in the past to achieve that. Next is sort of the timeline. Is this something that is actually going to be able to be completed within 2.5 years? Of the actual grant being notified of an award. It's not like it has to be before this process of actually getting the award. Once the resolution is finalized and the project has been awarded, from there, within 2.5 years, do you think the project can be completed realistically? And in order to evaluate that, providing a timeline will be very helpful to determine sort of the realistic expectations of the project. All right, so next is, does the project provide any type of benefits to the community? This is not just limited to economic benefits. It can be environmental, walkability, pedestrian safety, maybe it's air quality. Is the community in a distressed location? Are you trying to improve the area in some way? Runoff, all types of categories that you basically just need to provide some sort of benefit that the project will be, that the project will have. And then we have the leveraging of funds. So is this something where it's only going to be on the county dollar, or are you bringing in municipality funds or another grant from another source? The more, the project is leveraged, the higher it will score in this category. And importantly, you have to provide a letter of financial commitment from each additional funding source. So definitely don't forget that step. And I'm just going to go through a few other requirements. Basically, as Jonathan mentioned, you will need a resolution from the partnering municipality. That is something that definitely takes the longest amount of time. And in that resolution, it has to mention these 4 things. It can be one single resolution. It doesn't have to be separate. It can be just several whereas clauses. But does the municipality support the project? Are they, in agreement with executing an IMA with the county? What is the secret determination? And if the village or town owns the land, are they going to be authorizing the easement with Suffolk County? You don't need this if it's on state land or county land. But if it's on town or village land, you need to authorize an easement. And then this is a little bit more about the SECRA. Is it a large project, which is type 1? Is it a medium scale type, unlisted? Or is it a small project, which is type 2? Just a note on unlisted actions, you will need a short environmental assessment form to be submitted with the application.
And James, is it fair to say that the vast majority of projects we see are type 2 projects or unlisted actions?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a type 1.
Just want to flag that for everyone.
Yeah,
So that
it's
don't
not
let this
always
be an intimidating step. It's pretty manageable, and your municipality should know how to do it.
right, right. This is something that they're doing all the time. So,
Yeah.
have the municipality assist you with this. Okay, so for every project application, we'll require some kind of aerial photo, and if possible, a Google Street View, so that we can actually see on the ground what the area looks like. If Street View is not available, you can also go and take photos of the area. We just want to see what it actually looks like. And then, so just know to make sure that you're downloading the latest version of the application and guidelines. Both of them have been updated for this year. And so we don't want to be seeing people copying over answers from prior rounds. We really want to see, full new applications with the new format and everything. Okay, so these next sections are really the meat of the application. So for the project budget, we're going to need written estimates for each line item that you list. This section can add up to a larger amount. It does not have to be equal to what you're requesting. It can show that you're going over, and then you'll list the other funds, whether it be from a town or village or the state or another grant, you'll list that on the bottom. So, and then on the bottom, remember that you're going to need, if you enter in any of these lines, you're going to need a letter of commitment from each of the sources. All right. So then for the project summary, definitely fill out the information at the top to the best of your ability. The description does not have to be very long, but it should outline exactly where you're planning to do the project and what it is. And then on the bottom half, you're going to be listing out the line items that the county funds will be paying for. So these numbers cannot add higher than the grant amount that you're requesting. So, particularly too, if you're just getting equipment or supplies and there's not any labor associated with maybe the install of these items, list them in the equipment or supplies. Don't put them in the contracted services sections if there's no labor associated with that. Say you're buying some sort of equipment that your municipality is going to install. You don't need to put it under contracted services.
And I think it'll be fair to say too, James, that the opposite is true. If you have a contractor who's doing the purchase and installation all themselves, that can all be grouped into one line of contractual services, right? You don't need to
Yes.
make a purchase. And in fact, it's easier for us and for you if you just are bidding this job out and they're purchasing the lights and they're doing the install and the electricity hookup all in one fell swoop. That's all under contractual services.
Yeah, so it's up to you. If the municipality is going to be doing the work, don't put it under contracted services, because then we'll need labor forms for any type of subcontractor you're bringing on. But if you are, it's easier to put it under one line under that total, project. All right, and now hopefully this next section will be a bit of an inspiration for you guys to sort of think about what your community might need. So this is also going to be available in on the website in a PDF, so you can refer to that as well, but I'll go into it in a little more detail. But these are some of the examples of projects that have either been funded or that the county would be willing to fund. And actually, I'll go through each one since they're broken out. So if there's some, area of your downtown that could benefit from permeable pavement to reduce, maybe flooding in that area, and also in runoff in maybe a pedestrian area or plaza that you have. This would be a good example. If you have bollards, to make sure that cars aren't going into a pedestrian area, that might be another use. If you're doing, crosswalks or particularly raised crosswalks to try to, make sure that, cars are going slow through your community. You can also reduce the crossing distance in combination with the crosswalk to sort of prevent or to, shorten the distance between, the people crossing. Let's see, also pedestrian hybrid beacons to really enforce, cars to stop when there are pedestrians crossing, or rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which are activated with the push button that are not a light, but it's at least another way to sort of alert drivers to slow down and to yield to pedestrians. There's also curb ramps, for ADA accessibility. We definitely don't want to see projects where the curb ramps are not aligned with the actual direction of travel for people with vision impairments. We don't want to be sending them into the middle of intersections. And then there's a slew of biking and public transit improvements that I'll go into. Basically, you can refer to the Suffolk County Hike and Bike Master Plan to see if there are any suggested projects in your community that were listed in the master plan. And then you can use that as an example of a visioning plan for that criteria that I mentioned earlier, as an improvement that was mentioned in the master plan. And so one of them is raised bike lanes to separate from vehicle traffic. You also see, there's, bike parking, bike boxes, basically to bring bikers to the front of, lights to give them a head start. You could also do bike shelters, bike lockers, particularly useful for commuting areas with, trains or public transit, where people can safely store their bikes. Bike repair stations, if you see a lot of people, riding bikes in your community and you want to help them. You can also do bus shelters. Suffolk County recently redid its bus network through the Reimagine Transit program. So there's a lot of areas that, might now become popular for transportation that don't have bus shelters yet. If you feel the need, to add one in your community, you could definitely apply for that. Same thing with bus bulb outs. If it's something where, pedestrians might not have a lot of space on the sidewalk to wait, this provides easier access to board the bus. And then we have a bunch of street lighting, different decorative features. We definitely don't want to encourage, these unfiltered lights that are just going to be shining out into the light, into the sky. We definitely support dark skies programs where the light is actually pointed down toward the street. And then there's a whole general category of streetscaping and placemaking improvements to sort of make your downtowns a little bit more attractive and memorable. So one of them is rain gardens and bioswales. So these are that one caveat that we were talking about earlier, where if you're planting, shrubs and, hardy native plants that are planned to live at least 15 years, that would be something that our bond council would approve. If it's really something that is hardscaped, or I should say, durable enough to last the term of the bond. So it can't be, delicate plantings. Probably some of these plants shown here are not, honestly. It's probably more toward grasses and shrubs and trees that are known to absorb a lot of water. And Cornell Cooperative Extension has a whole list that we can actually add to our website if you're interested. And then we have wayfinding. So to help people get around the downtown, maybe they're not familiar with it, or maybe you have a train station or bus, stop, and you want to encourage people who might not be familiar with the area to go and explore, or maybe, discuss the history of a certain area. These have been funded in the past. We also have things like, puzzle walls or things that are, sensory and, physical improvements to the streetscape to try to get some, activity from the community that might be just passing by and, making them stop and enjoy the area a little bit more and remember that place as an important place, to them, not just like a street that doesn't have anything to keep them, you know. And then there's a bunch of other resources. We'll be posting this PowerPoint, so you'll be able to click through these links. These are other areas that you might get some, inspiration. And basically, you're going to be submitting the application to Jonathan again by 4 p.m. on Friday, May 17th, not 2023, 2024. And, this is a hard deadline, so please try to get it in earlier than that. We don't want to be, seeing applications at 4:01 and,
Yeah. Don't make me the bad guy who says
Yeah.
I can't take it at 4:02.
Right. And yeah, so that we'll definitely switch to questions. I want to put up our contact information. If you have any questions about the application process, you can reach out to one of us. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
Okay, looks like Dave has his hand up once we figure out how to unmute. Allow mic. Okay, I think you should be able to speak now, David Lipsky, if I did this correctly. I'm not hearing
You
you.
do have to hit to to unmute.
Oh, that's, but yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Please
but you
don't
should be
unmute and
able
press
to now.
David, if you're having trouble, perhaps drop it your question in the chat, but we did enable your microphone, so you should be able to speak now. I'm going to try Eddie in the meantime, and we'll keep an eye on the chat. Okay, Eddie, you are able to speak, but you are also still muted, so you'll just need to unmute to ask your question. And I apologize, folks. We know Teams is a little difficult interface if you're not familiar with it. But if you look over on the right-hand side and up on the top, you should have your mic button to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
All right, sorry about that. Ed McNamara, I'm with the Ronkonkoma Chamber, and so a lot of this is brand new to us, and it seems self-explanatory, but then when you get into like, municipal maps and other projects underway, we're not really sure. And I know PSEG has a grant, but they want it to be strictly downtown, and we were thinking about doing something in one of the town parks, but that's not next to the downtown area. So it just gets like confusing. So we feel like we need to do it right on the downtown area, but we don't have any parks, in our business district.
Yeah, James, you know the area pretty well. Could you suggest where it might be suitable for Ronkonkoma in terms of a downtown? I'm thinking of I'm blanking on the intersection, but I can picture it in my head.
Ronkonkoma on Hawkins Avenue is the main downtown, but I'm imagining that that tree that recently had to get cut down because it died right at the corner. diagonal from Agnew and Taylor. That's not really a park, but you know, there's also
That's actually not
Rainer.
to interrupt you. That's
Oh yeah.
that's actually private property. We wanted to replant that tree. We're talking about doing a dog park, possibly. in
Oh, is this
Ronkonkoma.
where the I think this was actually brought up by a former colleague. Are you talking about by the power lines? Like
No.
where the power lines go, like by the LIE. I don't know the name of the park offhand.
It's Ronkonkoma Avenue and Church Street,
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
where the
that was
hot dog
actually brought
stand is.
up.
I don't
Yep.
know where the power lines are. I don't know if the power lines are right next to that. But so that's my point. That's not a downtown. It's not a business area over there. It's really residential. There is a Chinese restaurant across the street.
Yeah, and the gas station and yeah, I know. It's if you can argue that it would benefit the, community and it might not be scored as high because it's not in the traditional downtown, but if you
All
can
right,
argue
so
that
I
this
I
is
will tell you,
something that would benefit.
I'm a business person, so I don't waste your time or mine. So if I know I'm putting in a project that's not scoring high, I'm not going to do it. We want to score high so that we
Yeah.
show we're effective.
And perhaps what I'll do is just for the benefit of everyone, rather than dwell on the specifics of the question, just try to elevate that to something that's generic that everyone can
All
benefit
right,
from.
so does it have to
Yeah.
be next to down? So it has to be downtown to score high.
Yes. So there is a
All
category, as
right,
James went through, that talks about relationship to
all
the
right. So
downtown. If it's
we'll do that then. We'll do it
okay.
downtown. We'll do something like that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that would be our recommendation. If squarely in the downtown will score the highest, the further it is, the lower it will score, and it will diminish your chances. As James was going to say, if you can make a strong case in the other categories, there's a chance it still may score well enough.
And
to be
also, if you can
our
also
recommendation
argue
to
that
them.
there was no opportunity to put, you mentioned a dog park, maybe there's no opportunity to put one closer to the downtown. I know though that there's Rainer Park that is closer to the downtown.
It's still residential though.
Yeah,
That's
closer.
significantly closer though. Yeah, but you get my
We can try to
point. Like
follow up
it's
offline on that
proximity.
one.
Yeah.
David, did I see that you were able to get your mute going or your unmute going? Could you much about the easement requirements? Okay. So David asked, could you go into more detail about the easement requirements? We are thinking of upgrading our community house to allow for cultural use. The community house is owned by the village. Okay. So that's great. The village would simply need to convey an easement to the county in that case. It's a pretty simple form. And if this is a building that sounds like that's the case here, then in all likelihood, that simply can be referred to with a tax map number. That's something we would work out with the municipality after an award is made. There's a form that they can fill out and a Schedule A written description, which is just the meets and bounds for if you ever bought your house in your deed, you have that description of the property. It will be something similar to that and the tax map number. That's something we could work out with the municipality, and it's pretty straightforward. Easements in rights of way, like roads, are a little bit more difficult, but certainly for a discrete structure on a tax map, that's something we can address. I hope that answers your question. Caitlin Shea, I just enabled you to speak.
Hi, yes. I was wondering if there's partial funding. So like if you wouldn't cover the entire cost that we're asking for, but would you do partial?
Yeah, that has been done in the past. We do ask in the application for a plan or a description of how you might break down or phase a project or complete the project if we are not able to award the full funding request. So if your answer is something like we would undertake this first component, or we'd undertake a fundraising campaign in the community, or we'd seek additional match from the town or the village, however you might fill that gap, you can describe that in the application. But there are instances when we fund less than the requested amount. Try not to do it because it's simpler and easier to just give the full ask and not not break it up again among so many applications with less than they need to really get the stuff done, but it does happen, and that's how you would address that question.
Thank you.
Sure. Jeannie Edwards, you can, I just enabled your mic. And Jeannie, if you unmute, you should be able to ask your question. There we go. I heard you for a moment. Okay, maybe I'll come back to you. I'm going to turn it over to Don in the meantime. Don, if you unmute, you can ask your question. Don, you may still be muted, but this is Don Ferrero from Huntington. Okay, you may have stepped away. Well, Jeannie, if you want to give it another shot, I'll go back to you. Okay, we may be having some technical issues. If you want to drop that in the chat, we can hang out a moment. I'm just keeping an eye out to see if there's any other questions. Eddie, did you have another question?
Yeah, so how do we go about finding how to get an estimate of what a project would cost?
My suggestion would be to speak with the town, and someone in their grants or their public works division can probably has a relationship with a contractor or a firm that could provide a quote. That's typically what we see in these applications. If you shoot us an email offline and let us know if you're thinking of the Brookhaven side or the Islip side of the community, we could probably put you in touch with the right person. To my team, are there any other instances you're familiar with in terms of the way people provide estimates?
No, typically
Okay.
it's, reaching out to a contractor. And it's
then-
not like you're required to use that contractor. It's
Right.
just that you need to have some sort of written estimate for the project to actually apply.
And can I ask one more question?
Sure.
All right, so Ronkonkoma is unique that we're actually in 3 townships, but mainly 2, Islip and Brookhaven. So are we able to split between the 2 townships, like ask for 2 grants? Or is it we have to decide which one?
I've seen applications come in from the same town, like, for example, 2 from the town of Brookhaven or something. That's not a guarantee that they'll both be funded and they'll, in essence, be competing against each other. But there's no like requirement because each town is so big, we can have multiple applications per town.
But yeah, but I think it's actually the opposite question. It's say, for instance, could Ronkonkoma Chamber put in an application with the with partnership with Islip?
Right. Okay.
You certainly could. We wouldn't recommend it for some of the
All
same
right.
reasons we spoke about in terms of competing with yourself.
Yes. Thank you.
Jonathan, this is Don from Northport. I think I got my mic issue resolved.
Hey,
here.
Don. Yeah. Yep. We gotcha.
Good. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. 2 questions. One is that we're in the final stages of finishing construction on a piece of downtown revitalization that you funded last year, and so the construction will be behind us, and we'll be in the final, I guess, resolution of that contract. Will that have any impact on, say, a due submission in our downtown area?
I would, so to anyone for whom that's the case, I would point to that as evidence of ability to complete your projects in a time fashion.
Okay. So as long as I've shown that via a schedule that we are leading to completion or have been completed, and I'm in the
Yeah.
final stage of just finalizing paperwork, I'm all in good order, right?
Yeah, there is no prohibition on applying for funding if you have open ones or outstanding ones in the past. We know that's the case with a lot. But I think demonstrating that you're near completion on such a recent award could only benefit your application this year.
I appreciate that insight. And one other item, if I may. I'm on
Sure.
the existing 2024 round 22 application. And on page 3, it notes that you'll have those, I'm in page 3, number 14. It says resolution samples attached. I don't see the samples for a sample resolution with regard to, in this particular document.
Sure. I thought it was in the guidelines, the blue document. We will take a look after this call and make sure that it's there.
Yeah, it's on page, it's noted in page 3 and it says, samples attached, but when I scroll down, I'm not seeing it. So if you could just provide an update on that and provide those samples, those are always helpful in ensuring that the resolution is done properly.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Okay.
we'll re-upload the file. So definitely check back. It'll be the same link, but just re-uploaded.
Very good. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Have a good day now.
Take care.
Thanks.
Jeannie Edwards, we'll try you one more time in case you are able to get yourself unmuted. Otherwise, feel free to follow up with an email.
Also, we got a question from David in the chat.
Sorry, not so great with Teams myself.
So
Could you provide more
essentially,
examples of projects?
yeah, we have on the Downtown Revitalization website, there's a link to a portal that is like a mapping application that shows past funded projects, and you can click around, and there's also a story map where you can go and see the before and afters using Street View of certain projects across the county. So we do have, sort of like past successful funded projects. And I see that Nancy actually just linked to it.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We've had a lot of interest this year, which is really exciting for us. Certainly hit a bit of a lull in the first couple of years after COVID, but things are really waking back up and coming back with a roar. So we think we're going to have a really great round of applications this year. Feel free to reach out to us or to your panel representative on our website for more guidance or information. As I said at the onset, this is being recorded. So once we get that file processed and trimmed down, we'll post that on our panel website as well. So on behalf of Economic Development and Planning and County Executive Romaine, thanks again for joining and good luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very
Bye.
much.